Your lifestyle is quietly ruining your life. Explained right now. As you are sitting here watching this, your body is aging faster than it should be. Not because of a disease, not because of bad genetics, because of the way you have chosen to live your day, every single day. Here is the statistic that stopped me cold. According to the World Health Organization, 80% of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes cases are entirely preventable. Entirely. Yet these three conditions alone kill more than 17 million people every single year. Not because medicine failed them, because their lifestyle did slowly, silently, and without any warning until it was almost too late. Think about what you did today. You probably sat for most of it. You probably ate something processed. You probably looked at a screen within the first 10 minutes of waking up. You probably slept less than you needed. None of those things felt dangerous. That is exactly the problem. The most destructive forces in your health are not dramatic. They are invisible. They are routine. And they are quietly compounding inside your body right now as you watch this. So let me ask you something. What if everything you think is just your life is actually slowly ruining it? In this video, we are going to pull back the curtain on something that most health content refuses to address honestly. Not symptoms, not supplements, not quick fixes. The actual science-backed biological destruction that your daily lifestyle is causing right now, in real time, inside your body. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what is happening inside your cells when you live the way most modern people live. You will know the 4 daily habits that are doing the most damage, and why you have been told they are harmless. You will know the warning signs your body has already been sending you, and you will know the evidence-based solutions that the research actually supports. Most people will never sit down and have this conversation with themselves. They wait until the diagnosis arrives. You are not going to be one of those people. Stay until the end, because the final point will completely change the way you live your daily life. Here is what is actually happening inside your body right now. Every choice you make, what you eat, when you sleep, how much you move, how long you sit, how often you are under stress sends a direct chemical signal to your cells. Your cells respond to those signals by either repairing themselves or slowly breaking down. That process does not announce itself. You will not feel it happening, but it is happening every single hour of every single day. The core biological mechanism at play here is called chronic low-grade inflammation. This is not the inflammation you feel when you sprain your ankle. That is acute inflammation, your body defending itself, and it goes away. Chronic low-grade inflammation is different. It is a persistent, silent, below-the-radar immune activation that never fully switches off. And according to the National Institutes of Health, chronic inflammation is now understood to be a primary root driver of the majority of modern non-communicable diseases, including cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's disease, depression, and multiple cancers. According to research published in Nature Medicine, this condition, sometimes called inflammaging, is increasingly prevalent among adults over the age of 35 in westernized societies. Most of them have no idea. Here is the part that makes this so dangerous. Inflammation at this level produces no dramatic pain. It does not trigger a fever. It does not send you to the emergency room, not yet. What it does instead is degrade your cellular function gradually, silently, across decades. Think of it like rust forming inside a pipe. You cannot see it happening from the outside. The water still flows, but the pipe is weakening every single day, until one day it does not. The system most directly affected is your endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels. When chronic inflammation is present, this lining becomes increasingly dysfunctional. Blood pressure rises. Arterial walls stiffen. Glucose regulation begins to fail. The brain receives less oxygen-rich blood, and none of it announces itself with pain until the damage is already decades deep. The alarming truth is that by the time most people receive a diagnosis, a heart attack, a diabetes warning, a cognitive decline assessment, the biological process behind it began 15 to 20 years earlier. And it began with lifestyle. So what exactly is driving this inflammation? That is where it gets very specific and very uncomfortable. Let us talk about the long-term damage that nobody addresses, the kind that does not show up in a standard blood panel until it is already advanced. A landmark study published in the Lancet, drawing on data from over 100 countries, found that physical inactivity alone accounts for more than 5 million deaths globally, every year, making it comparable in mortality risk to smoking. 5 million deaths from not moving enough. Not from a virus, not from a toxin, from a lifestyle. Let us break down the 3 systems taking the most damage. The first is your brain. Chronic inflammation can cross what is called the blood-brain barrier, a protective membrane that is supposed to shield the brain from harmful substances circulating in the blood. When that barrier becomes compromised through poor sleep, chronic stress, and inflammatory diets, activated immune cells called microglia begin attacking healthy neural tissue. A study published in JAMA Psychiatry found that people with higher markers of systemic inflammation had significantly elevated rates of depression, cognitive impairment, and accelerated brain aging. The mechanism is direct. Inflammation reduces the brain's production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein responsible for growing new neurons and maintaining memory and mood. Lower levels of this protein mean slower thinking, darker moods, and a brain that ages faster than it should. The second system is your gut. Your gut contains approximately 38 trillion microbial organisms, roughly equal to the total number of cells in your entire body. This microbiome regulates your immune response, produces roughly 90% of your body's serotonin, and communicates directly with your brain through the vagus nerve. When your lifestyle is high in ultra-processed foods, low in fiber, and disrupted by poor sleep and chronic stress, the diversity of this microbiome collapses. A study published in Nature found that loss of gut microbiome diversity is strongly associated with systemic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and mood disorders. The gut lining itself can begin to break down a condition called increased intestinal permeability, allowing bacterial fragments to enter the bloodstream and trigger body-wide immune activation. The third system is your hormonal network. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, is designed to spike briefly during moments of danger and then return to baseline. In modern lifestyle conditions where chronic psychological stress, poor sleep, and excessive screen stimulation, our constant cortisol can remain elevated for prolonged periods. According to the American Psychological Association, chronically elevated cortisol directly suppresses immune function, disrupts insulin signaling, accelerates fat storage, particularly around the abdomen, and impairs the body's ability to regulate blood pressure. Over time, the entire hormonal cascade from thyroid function to reproductive hormones can begin to misfire. 3 systems, 3 simultaneous breakdowns, all driven by the same root cause, the way you are living. And here is the part that should concern you most. All of this is being made significantly worse by specific daily habits that you have probably never thought twice about. Let us talk about the specific habits that are making this worse every single day, habits you probably think are completely harmless. The first habit is sitting for more than 6 hours a day. Most people think sitting is just rest. Your body does not agree. At the cellular level, prolonged sitting triggers a process called lipoprotein lipase suppression. The enzyme responsible for breaking down fat in the bloodstream essentially shuts down when your large muscle groups are inactive for extended periods. A study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine found that people who sit for the most hours each day are more likely to have a sedentary lifestyle, have a significantly higher risk of cardiovascular disease, and early death even when they exercise regularly. EMPHASIS, you cannot undo hours of uninterrupted sitting with 30 minutes at the gym. The damage begins within the first 30 minutes of continuous sitting. Insulin sensitivity drops. Blood flow to the lower body slows. The muscles responsible for glucose uptake go dormant. The second habit is scrolling screens within the first 30 minutes of waking. Most people think this is just a harmless morning routine. What it actually does is immediately trigger cortisol and dopamine responses simultaneously before your nervous system has had time to calibrate for the day. According to research from the University of California, early morning exposure to social media and news activates the brain's threat detection system, elevating stress hormones at a point in the morning when they should naturally be declining. This disrupts your mood regulation for the entire day and primes your nervous system to remain in a low-grade stress state from the moment you wake up. Emphasis: you are choosing your emotional baseline for the entire day within the first 30 minutes, and most people choose anxiety without even realizing it. The third habit is eating ultra-processed foods daily. Most people think of processed food as just not the healthiest option. The biology tells a very different story. Ultra-processed foods now account for approximately 58% of total caloric intake in the United States. According to data published by the National Institutes of Health, these foods are engineered to bypass your satiety signals entirely. They activate dopamine pathways in the brain in ways that closely resemble the response to addictive substances, while simultaneously damaging the gut microbiome, spiking blood glucose, and flooding the bloodstream with pro-inflammatory compounds. A major study published in the BMJ, involving over 100,000 participants, found that a 10% increase in ultra-processed food consumption was associated with a 12% higher risk of cardiovascular disease. The damage begins with the first meal. Within 2 hours of consuming high glycemic ultra-processed food, inflammatory markers measurably rise in the bloodstream. The fourth habit is sleeping fewer than 7 hours consistently. Most people think they have adapted to less sleep. The brain has not. Matthew Walker, professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, and one of the world's leading sleep researchers, has demonstrated that sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night for 2 weeks produces cognitive impairment, equivalent to being legally drunk, while the subjects themselves report feeling fine. Meanwhile, the glymphatic system, the brain's overnight waste clearance mechanism that removes toxic proteins, including amyloid beta linked to Alzheimer's disease, operates almost exclusively during deep sleep. Every night of shortened sleep is a night the brain does not get fully cleaned. Emphasis: research suggests that recovering from a week of significant sleep deprivation can take several weeks of adequate sleep to reverse. But the damage does not stop. Your habits. Your body has been sending you signals this whole time, and most people are completely ignoring them. Your body is not silent about this. It has been talking to you for a long time. The problem is nobody told you what to listen for. The first warning sign is waking up exhausted after a full night of sleep. You know that feeling you slept 7 or 8 hours, but you wake up feeling like you barely rested. That is not laziness. Biologically, it indicates either disrupted sleep architecture, meaning your body is not spending sufficient time in the deeper, restorative stages of sleep, or elevated overnight cortisol, which prevents proper cellular repair. This symptom often appears early in lifestyle-driven health decline, sometimes years before any clinical diagnosis. The second warning sign is persistent brain fog or difficulty concentrating. If you regularly feel mentally slow, struggle to retain information, or feel like your thinking is running through mud, that is your brain signaling reduced blood flow, elevated neuroinflammation, or depleted brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Research from the Harvard Medical School Division of Sleep Medicine has shown that even a single night of poor sleep can meaningfully reduce cognitive performance. When this fog is chronic, it is a sign the problem is no longer occasional. The third warning sign is abdominal fat that will not shift regardless of effort. Visceral fat, the fat stored around your internal organs, is not merely a cosmetic concern. It functions as an active endocrine organ, secreting pro-inflammatory compounds directly into your bloodstream. Its excess is one of the most reliable clinical markers of chronic cortisol elevation, insulin resistance, and systemic inflammation. If it is not responding to diet or exercise changes, the root driver is almost always hormonal and inflammatory, not simply caloric. The fourth warning sign is persistent anxiety or low mood with no clear external cause. Systemic inflammation directly suppresses serotonin production and reduces the brain's capacity for emotional regulation. When people feel persistently flat, unmotivated, or quietly anxious without an obvious reason, the body is frequently communicating an inflammatory burden, often long before any mood disorder is formally diagnosed. The fifth warning sign is getting sick frequently or recovering slowly. If you catch every illness that passes through your workplace, or notice that minor injuries take longer to heal than they used to, then you are a health hero. Your immune system is communicating that it is overextended, spending its resources, managing chronic internal inflammation, rather than defending against external threats. If you recognized even 2 of those signs just now, keep watching, because what comes next is the part your doctor probably never told you. Now here is the part of this conversation that almost never happens inside a doctor's office, and there are real structural reasons why. This is not a criticism of doctors as individuals. Most physicians are working extraordinarily hard within a system that was not designed to address what we are talking about today. Understanding why that system falls short is the first step to filling the gap yourself. The first reason is time. The average primary care appointment in the United States lasts between 7 and 15 minutes, according to data published in the Journal of General Internal Medicine. In that window, a physician must review your history, address your presenting symptoms, order tests, and manage prescriptions. There is simply no structural space to conduct a comprehensive conversation about sleep hygiene, dietary patterns, stress physiology, sedentary behavior, and their combined biological effects. The system was built for acute illness, not lifestyle medicine. The second reason is training. A survey published in Academic Medicine found that the average medical school in the United States provides fewer than 20 hours of nutrition education across the entire 4-year degree. 20 hours. In a degree that covers some of the most complex science on Earth. Lifestyle factors, diet, sleep, movement, stress are the primary drivers of the conditions responsible for most deaths worldwide. Yet they receive remarkably little dedicated curriculum time in the training of the professionals who treat those conditions. The third reason is system design. The healthcare system is financially structured around treatment rather than prevention. Pharmaceutical interventions, diagnostic procedures, and specialist referrals generate revenue. A conversation about walking more, sleeping consistently, or removing ultra-processed food from your diet does not generate a billable outcome in the same way. This is not malicious, it is structural. But it means the most powerful interventions available to you are rarely the ones most aggressively promoted in a clinical setting. A study published in PLOS Medicine demonstrated that comprehensive lifestyle intervention encompassing changes in diet, sleep, physical activity, and stress management was more effective at reducing cardiovascular risk than medication alone in a meaningful proportion of participants. More effective. And yet medication remains the primary clinical first response to cardiovascular risk. This is not about blame. This is about filling a gap that the system was never designed to fill for you. So now let us talk about what the research actually shows works, not opinions, not trends, not influencer advice. Real evidence-based solutions. The first solution is daily non-exercise activity, also known as NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This means low-intensity movement spread throughout the day, walking, standing, taking stairs outside of formal exercise sessions. A study published in Diabetology found that breaking up prolonged sitting with just 2 minutes of light walking every 30 minutes significantly reduced blood glucose and insulin levels compared to uninterrupted sitting, even when total exercise volume remained the same. NEAT reactivates the lipoprotein lipase enzyme that prolonged sitting suppresses and maintains baseline metabolic activity throughout the day. The actionable method is simple. Set a reminder for every 45 minutes during your workday. Stand up, walk to another room, do 10 slow bodyweight squats. The total time investment is under 10 minutes per hour. The biological impact is measurable within the first week. The second solution is time-restricted eating, specifically maintaining a minimum 12-hour overnight fast. This means limiting your eating window to between 8 and 12 hours per day and allowing at least 12 hours overnight without caloric intake. Research from the Salk Institute, published in Cell Metabolism, found that time-restricted eating without any reduction in total caloric intake reduced body weight, visceral fat, blood pressure, and inflammatory markers in participants with metabolic syndrome. The mechanism involves the activation of autophagy, your body's cellular recycling and repair process, which requires an extended fasting period to initiate. The actionable method is straightforward. If you finish dinner at 8 in the evening, do not eat again until at least 8 the following morning. Start there. Improvements in inflammatory markers can appear within 4 weeks. The third solution is consistent sleep scheduling, and this one may be more impactful than almost anything else on this list. This means going to bed and waking at the same time every day, including weekends, in order to anchor and stabilize your circadian rhythm. Research from the Harvard Division of Sleep Medicine found that irregular sleep timing, varying bedtime, by more than 90 minutes across the week was independently associated with higher rates of obesity, diabetes, hypertension, depression, regardless of how many total hours of sleep a person was getting. Regularity of sleep timing matters as much as duration. The actionable method: choose a fixed wake time and protect it for 30 days. Your natural sleep pressure will begin to align your bedtime within 2 weeks. The fourth solution is anti-inflammatory nutrition anchors, not a complete dietary overhaul, but the strategic addition of specific foods with documented anti-inflammatory effect. A meta-analysis published in the journal Nutrients found that consistent consumption of omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenol-rich vegetables, and fermented foods significantly reduce C-reactive protein, a primary blood marker of systemic inflammation, within 8 to 12 weeks. The actionable method: add 1 serving of fatty fish twice per week, 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil daily, and 1 fermented food such as plain yogurt, kefir, or kimchi each day. These 3 additions alone have measurable anti-inflammatory impact, without requiring a complete dietary reinvention. The fifth solution is a protected morning window, 30 minutes without screens or digital input. Research has found that keeping the first 30 minutes after waking free of digital devices helps preserve the natural cortisol awakening response, allowing your stress hormone to follow its intended arc, rather than being immediately hijacked by external stimulation. Over time, this recalibrates your nervous system's baseline stress sensitivity. The actionable method: keep your phone face down or in another room until you have had water, some natural light exposure, and at least 10 minutes of quiet. Use this window for breathing, gentle movement, or simply sitting still. The cumulative effect on mood, focus, and cortisol regulation becomes measurable within 3 weeks. These are not hacks. These are not shortcuts. These are the things your biology actually responds to. And the research proves it. Here's the that ties everything we covered today into one clear picture. Your lifestyle is not just a collection of personal preferences. It is a daily biological instruction that you send to every cell in your body, every hour, every meal, every night of sleep, every morning routine. You are either signaling repair or signaling breakdown. And the accumulation of those signals, across months and years, becomes your health. The most powerful thing about everything you learn today is this. Unlike genetics, unlike aging, unlike the majority of forces that shape your health lifestyle, is the one variable almost entirely within your control. You now know something that most people around you will never take the time to learn. You know the mechanism, you know the damage, you know the signals your body has been sending you, and you know what the research says actually works. If this video gave you something real, share it with one person who needs to hear it. That one share might genuinely change someone's health trajectory. If you want to go deeper, subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation. Next, we are going to talk about what chronic stress is actually doing to your heart, and what you find out will surprise you even more than today. Your body is always listening. Start sending it better signals.